Alright, I hit record.
All right.
So we're good.
Recording?
Mhm.
Oh god, they'll know.
Good intro. Alright, cool.
Alright, that's our intro. Hello, welcome to Wasted Respawn episode number 207. As you can see, we are missing a couple of your boys.
Oh,
No?
it's just us. I didn't realize that Graham and Drummer weren't here until now. Weird.
As for the people that are not watching our video and are just listening on one of the many awesome places that you can find podcasts, there's only two of us here today.
That's right. The two OG members. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
The OGs are here.
Yeah.
Your girl AltAvenge and your boy AlanWoke. Brr, brr, brr. Grim's not here. We have to do a couple extras.
Yeah.
Get in the spirit.
Yeah.
So yeah. What how has your week been? Also, sorry for the squeaky door. Let me ask you that again. How has your week been?
Oh, how's my way? I could hear over the squeaky door.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. No, it was good. I had a good week. Again, like I'm not doing anything on the AlanWoke channel, so I'm kind of just like taking time to be good, to be a good person. I don't know why I said that. No, I just
being the goodest boy.
Being the goodest boy at my house, which is pretty nice. No, I'm just relaxing, fucking taking it easy, editing. Wasted Respawn shit. It's fucking super easy. Apex was incredibly easy to edit. I hope we do more Apex content because that was incredibly fucking easy.
Well, yeah. It was fun too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, the video turned out really well, I think. Like, we were pretty funny during that, so I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend you guys go check it out. It's top 10 tricks in Apex or some stupid shit like that. It's a clickbait title with a clickbait thumbnail.
What not to do, 10 top things not to do in Apex,
Top
even though
10.
we actually didn't play that terribly.
We really didn't.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, top 10 sexiest ways to play Apex. Sex pecs. Anyways, how was your week?
My week was honestly super uneventful, I'm not gonna lie. Just filmed Apex shit with you guys the other day.
Just said that.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much it. Your girl didn't do much. Oh.
A 12-hour stream really got to us. Really took us down.
Yeah, for real. I did do one stream, unless I did that last week and talked about it already. I'm not sure. I might have.
I don't think so.
I did do one stream. Oh, okay, so I've done one stream.
I missed it.
Actually, I think I did it after we did our podcast because I already had makeup on and everything. So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna go live."
I remember seeing that because, like, yeah, I remember like coming back in the living room and then seeing a notification on my phone, like, AltAvenge is live. I'm like, why is she live right now? What is she doing?
It's what? Hello? Yeah. So I was like, well, I already have makeup on, so like I might as well just, stream. So I did like a little just chatting moment and talked to a couple people. Yeah, we talked about like mental health and stuff. It's actually pretty cool.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Other than that, I haven't done anything.
Nice. It's been nice not doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to like start back up like fully back into my schedule because my family is coming from out of town like in less than a week. So, or no, a little bit over a week. So I don't want to like start back up and then be like, just kidding, guys. I'm not going to be here again for another possibly like week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know. Like, yeah. So I've been just kind of popping in every once in a while, like, hello, okay, bye.
I said the same exact shit that you said you didn't want to do on the fucking AlanWoke channel. Like, I went on vacation, I came back, made 2 videos, and then like I'm taking my hiatus right now. Like, God damn it. So bad.
Exactly, like, damn it.
Shit. Yeah.
YouTube's easier with that though, because like you're putting the content out there, and then it's like more like permanent. So like people. Like, I watch videos from, like, 5 years ago, sometimes on YouTube, like, it's more of a people actually will come and watch it type thing, even while you're on a break. Like, I don't feel like a lot of people rewatch, like, my streams. Yeah.
I would say it's a little bit harder as, like, a newer YouTube channel for people to, like, find your content that isn't newly, freshly posted, because, like, a lot of that relies on, like, what's in the moment, what's fresh right now, what's in the algorithm right now. kind of thing.
Makes sense.
Anyways, I don't want to bitch about my fucking YouTube problems.
Anywho.
So we're pretty fucking big nerds here at Wasted Respawn. That's been way overly established. But we're also pretty big nerds for true crime.
Yes, and I know we have already had a lot of laughs on this podcast so far, but we're definitely moving on to a more serious topic. Just like to add a disclaimer, like we don't mean any disrespect to anybody or any of the families involved in any of these true crime cases. I have the utmost respect for everybody who's been, affected by anything like this. Is terrible. Some of these crimes are like just, oh my God, it's really horrible. No one deserves any of the stuff that's happened. And also, if we give our opinions, they are just that, opinions, and they are not us, I don't even know the word. I'm looking for the word. We're not like, We're
not stating facts here. We don't think this is like how it is exactly. Like our opinion isn't the end all be all to the case. Obviously, it's just what we think.
Yes.
We're just a couple
obviously
of people
everyone's entitled to
with
it.
a couple of ideas.
Right, and we will be talking about some actual facts from the case, just from like the actual case. But some of the things that we say will be opinions, and obviously, like, don't sue us and get mad at us and butthurt.
And also, like a small trigger warning, because like graphic content we're discussing as well. So if you get easily offended or triggered by, things about true crime, then this is like your warning right here.
Yes, I appreciate you doing that,
because
because it definitely can be tough. I actually was just telling Alan earlier that as much as like I love true crime and I just like watch it all the freaking time, like I love it, but I will like watch a bunch of it and then I have to take a break for like months at a time because it will just start giving me anxiety because of like how intense.
Oh yeah.
It is. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely some serious stuff.
A lot of the cases like involving like younger girls and shit like that, it does get to me quite a bit. It's like, I don't know, I don't like it. It's upsetting.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So like specifically today, we want to talk about cold cases because like those are probably the more interesting when it comes to true crime, I think. So why don't you give us like a small rundown of what a cold case is?
All right, so a cold case is an unsolved criminal investigation which remains open pending the discovery of new evidence. The United States actually has 250,000 unsolved murders like at this time, and that number increases every year by 6,000. So that is so many unsolved murders that we have here in the United States. It's like a really sad number to see.
Yeah. I would say the number has gone down pretty drastically over time for obvious reasons that we'll get into. I wanted to find the exact statistic on how low cold cases have dropped since a certain time, but I forgot. Your boy's lazy.
Statistically. Oh.
Do.
I don't like think of how to word that.
Words are hard. I'm a fucking idiot. I almost had my shirts on backwards, and then I realized that the Discord shows the camera backwards.
I can't find that statistic, and a lot of the things are like, do you have a cold? Okay.
Is your case cold? Is it sick?
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, fuck that then.
Might just be my terrible Googling skills too, but. All right. Yeah, so that's like an outrageous number of cases, especially like you think about it, just how far like our technology has come. Like, okay, so like the first DNA evidence was used 30 years ago. It was like the first time that they ever used like DNA in a case.
How long ago?
And back then, like 30 years. So like not even that long ago. Yeah, that's pretty recent.
1990? That's 30 years. Right?
I mean, I'm assuming 30 years from the article that I read, so I think it was like the 80s.
Just not much better.
I want to say the 80s. the late 80s.
Yeah.
So actually, no, you're right. 1996. I have it written down.
That's when they started using DNA evidence?
That's what I have written down here.
What the fuck? What? That's...
Yes. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. It was the 80s. It was the 80s.
Okay, I think 96 is the case we're going to be talking about.
Late. Yes, that's what I have written down.
Okay, that makes sense.
For that. Wait, no, is that I actually want to Google that just so we don't sound really stupid. We have that wrong. Yeah, 85.
Okay,
so, yeah.
still.
So, yeah, it was 30 years ago from the article that I read, so 1985. And back then, they didn't, like, technology was nowhere near as amazing as it is now. Pretty much all they could tell you back then was just like, oh, this was a man's DNA, or like this was a woman's DNA. Like there wasn't that much they can go off of. Obviously it did help them like a little bit back in the day. That was a new advance, because before that they didn't even have DNA evidence as a thing. So because of how terrible technology was in the past, that's a big majority of our cold cases are still cold, because they didn't have the resources in order to test evidence and find any DNA matches in order to find suspects.
Yeah. I like to imagine like the 1950s police officers just walk into a crime scene. Yep, it's a murder, all right. Case closed.
Case closed.
Case closed.
We don't know who did it, but
I know it's a guy.
Somebody.
The woman's at home.
Yeah, back then. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's.
Sorry, I threw you off.
Obviously, yeah, you threw me off. I'm like, oh, what the fuck was I talking about?
My bad.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Damn, what was I thinking about?
Shit.
You really threw me off. That was funny though, but yeah, I'm like really thrown off. Oh, okay.
Cold
so
cases,
nowadays we have much better technology. Even tiny samples of DNA are able to pull full genetic profiles of people, and of suspects. So we went from being able to just like say, oh, this is a man or a woman, to now we can like compare them to entire databases of people, and we can get down to like, this person has like these genetics, so they probably have like brown hair, or like they're more likely to have green eyes, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's made such a huge impact, this technology, on how we are able to solve cases. And now what we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast, so that we can end on a more positive note. We're able to actually look at cases that are from the 80s, before, they had the DNA, and even earlier than that, and they've been solved now. The one case we're going to talk about was actually solved in 2020, as a matter of fact. After all these years, they were able to use the technology that we have now and use the DNA that somebody had put in a little evidence bag and has just been stuck somewhere on a shelf for all of these years. They were able to use that to actually solve a case,
which is pretty neat.
Freaking cool.
Pretty neat, man.
That is very cool. And also, I guess bad for all of the murderers who thought they were going to get away with a bunch of shit back in the day. It's not looking too good for them nowadays. So.
Oh yeah, I see on the news sometimes like, 65-year-old Gerard Michelson was fucking convicted of a murder in 1967. I was like, okay, well that sucks for that guy. He lived like the 45 years of his life thinking he's gonna get away with it, and then he gets fucking caught at 65 for some new evidence, or evidence that was found but later tested in 2021 or 2020. Pretty fucking
makes me like
crazy.
So mad too. Like some of these people, they took someone else's like life away, and then they just got to lead like normal life for so long, and then like I don't know, it that just like fucks with me. Like they got to just like have a house and like their family, or their wife and their fucking kids and shit.
Like they
and
basically
like
got away
like
with
some
it.
of them are normal. Yeah. Because at what you're catching someone that's like now in their 70s, they've already lived an entire life. You know, like they've already been through it, and that person that they took their life away, like they didn't get to do all that. So it's just it's shitty to think about. Hurts my heart a little bit.
Which is kind of one of the cases we're going to get into. It's kind of around the topic area. Someone taken so fucking young over something we don't know of yet. But yeah,
that's a good segue, I think, into the one of the big cases that we'll be talking. Well, we want to start with the other one, right?
I'm gonna let you leak, because I don't know which one you mean exactly now.
All right, so
because they're both kind of like involving that subject matter of a young child. Yeah,
that is true. So we're gonna talk about 2 cases before we get into the 7 cases.
Oh, that was 2. That was 2. Sorry.
I thought you were like, wait, 2.
I was just putting up a number.
Guys, this is what happens when half our team is missing. You have to deal with us, okay? I'm sorry.
We're left alone, unsupervised.
So sorry. Yeah, our supervisors are not here.
Yeah, Drummer's not here to keep us in check.
Yeah, no one's here to keep us in line, so...
It's all scripted and nonsensical.
What is this? Hello?
Is this even live right now? Anyways, so what's the first one that you want to talk about?
Okay, so when I was looking into cold cases, which, you know, like we said in the beginning, I'm like a true crime junkie, and so I've seen a lot of things. I actually came across a website that listed the most notorious cold cases for like each state in the United States. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So obviously I scrolled on down to Florida, since, you know, that's the state where I live. Yep. And I was like, I don't really know about like too many cases in Florida. And I thought for sure when I got to that one, it was going to say Kaylee Anthony case. That's what I thought it was going to say.
Casey Anthony or Kaylee?
Well, Casey is the mom.
Yeah.
Kaylee was the one that got murdered.
Right.
So I thought that it would say, get it together. I thought it would say Kaylee Anthony, and I was like very surprised that it didn't. So
weird.
Yeah, so apparently the most notorious cold case in Florida is the Sims family murders. This murder took place in 1966. And it's still a cold case today. So this is still 100% unsolved. After reading this case, there's not a lot to it, really. Sadly, like there's not a lot of information out there about it. But it's still a really interesting case, and I really do hope that they find the people who did this.
Yeah.
So this case took place in Tallahassee, Florida. Basically, Robert, Helen, and Joy Sims were murdered in their home. Their 2 eldest daughters were out on like babysitting jobs, and the daughter came home and she actually found her family, which is so terrible.
Yeah.
They were all bound and gagged. They were all tied up with like lingerie and like other random articles of clothing. And the mom was shot in the head, and she was actually still alive when her daughter found her.
Yeah.
And then the dad was also shot in the head, and she was also shot in the leg. And then the dad was also shot in the head, and he was actually still alive when she arrived on the scene. And then her youngest sister, who I think was about 12 years old.
I actually didn't write that down. I probably should have.
I think she was about 12 years old. She was also shot in the head, and then she was stabbed a multitude of times.
It basically sounds like a fucking execution. I mean, they're all shot in the head and tied up. I'm assuming it sounds like a planned execution. to me.
Right, in my opinion as well, especially with the stabbing of the youngest daughter. Usually in crimes where there's stabbings, if it's just like a random like robbery gone wrong, like the stabber will like they'll only do it like 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
But when it's like a crime of like passion or anger or rage, anything like that, like they always end up like stabbing them like a ridiculous number of times. I don't know what it is about that, but it's just how it goes every time.
Yeah.
I've also seen conflicting stories on this, but some sources say that their daughter was actually Joy was actually like naked from the waist down. Yeah, they found her, and then some sources are saying that like it wasn't like sexual, like nothing was sexual in nature in the case.
I think that was proven false. Was the whole story of that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen it like written both ways, and I was just like, that's pretty confusing. So, the daughter, the eldest, one of the older daughters who found her family. She ended up calling a funeral home to come because in their town, I guess it was like standard, like everyone knew that if you called the funeral home, they would get the ambulance to you faster than if you like called 911, I guess.
Which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, which is super weird. But they ended up getting there, and then the dad was sadly dead on arrival by the time the ambulance arrived. And then their mother actually ended up going to the hospital, but she died several days later. 9 days later. They basically couldn't do much for her because of the gunshot wound to her head.
The bullet fell further into her brain as the 9 days passed on, so they couldn't pull the bullet out of her head at that time period.
Yes. So once the police arrived, one of the people on the ambulance, I guess, the funeral home people, I guess it's like a family type of business, because one of the people in the ambulance was like a 16 at the time, and he said that these police botched this case like really bad. He said that he remembers the police walking in there. They didn't like put up like crime scene tape. Like they didn't try to like make it, where like no one's touching anything. They basically walked in there and made themselves coffee. Yeah. Is what he remembers. Which is terrible.
The arriving officer didn't set up the crime scene at all. Like I said, he just kind of walked in. He let everybody else walk in there that wanted to walk in. People were kind of just like going through the fucking house, looking at shit, which is obviously gonna tamper with fucking evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely not taken as seriously as it should have been. I think that's a big theme in my opinion, with a lot of cold cases is like botched police work. Yeah. From listening to so many true crime stories and like reading and stuff like that, like so many of them are like, oh, well, this cop like didn't do this, or like this cop like touched the evidence with no gloves, or like this one like didn't think this was important, so like they didn't even write it down, or like something like that. And it's like, if some of these people would have just done things, I guess, by the book instead of doing whatever they're doing, which we're also going to get into in the next case too. There was a lot of that type of stuff. Who knows if these cases would still be cold if they actually would have like locked down the crime scene and no one would have been in and out or like touching anything or stepping on anything or potentially contaminating the evidence. It's really frustrating.
It's extremely like discouraging as a fucking citizen to know that like the police truly won't give a shit about your crime scene. Like, all right, there he is. Everybody come in, look at the body.
yeah, like God forbid, like anything like this happened to like anybody that you love or like to you or anything like that, like wouldn't you want to know that like the police did everything in their power to make sure that like they find whoever did this to you, you know,
Yeah.
such terrible things to you or your family, like it frustrates me to no end.
Yeah, the lack of disrespect, the lack of respect, stupid.
Yes. So one thing that I think that the police did do right in this case is they apparently interviewed like absolutely anybody that had to do with this family. This was a really well-liked family in the community. People couldn't think of anybody that would want to hurt them. Everyone said nothing but praises about them. But sadly, at this time, there was a lot of strangers in Tallahassee at this time. There was a big football game happening, and also there was like this state fair going on. So even if they interviewed like every person in this town, they still wouldn't have been able to ask everybody that was in town at that time because there were so many strangers from out of town for the football game or for the fair, which was happening.
Yeah. Kind of like piggybacking off of that, you saying like the police, that's like the one one thing they did do right was interviewing the shit out of people. This is kind of going a little bit ahead, but so the murders actually mimic a book by Truman Capote. So and the police realized that. So they went to the local libraries around the area, so who checked out these books, and they interviewed every single person who had checked out that single book. Because like I believe the murder in the book was the exact same as a family of 3 that were bound and gagged and shot in the head. Like almost,
the book was in Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood, thank you.
Yeah, and basically it was almost the exact same story. It was like a family of, it was 3 family members were murdered while their older family members were out of the house, actually. Right. It was like almost exactly the same. Yeah.
But a last suspect was found. Even was like such it's like similar to fucking Don't Fuck with Cats, like when the guy's like mimicking the fucking movies for his murders.
Right.
Like it's you think like really compelling evidence to find somebody, or like enough evidence to find somebody, I should say. But yeah, nobody was found after that.
Yeah, and then there was also like a theory going around. It was mostly just like, you know, small town gossip. Tallahassee was a small town back then, apparently.
1966.
Yeah, so there was a theory going around that actually kind of ruined this dude's like whole career. Pastor Roberts was the pastor at a local church in the community, and pretty much all the gossip was that he was responsible for their deaths because the wife, she actually worked with the pastor for up until 3 days before her and her family were murdered, and no one knows why she quit. From what I read, no one knows why Helen actually like quit her job there, but it was known that Pastor Roberts was like a huge womanizer, and he was like switching out ladies like here like back and forth and everything. But the police actually cleared him because he had like a really strong alibi. He was actually the pastor at the football game. I guess you had to have like a religious man at the football game. I don't know why, but he was at the football game, and pretty much like a bunch of witnesses could place him there at the time of the murder, and they also had video footage of him being there. But basically the rumors got so bad that he ended up quitting his job and moving to somewhere else because he could not live there anymore because people basically just blamed him for murdering their entire family.
There was even like some theories saying that he hired people to kill them and shit like that. That was some of the rumors that were spreading even after he got cleared.
Some of the stranger evidence that I heard as well, which I'm not sure actually led to anything. So back in the 80s, back in the 60s, there was this thing called like a party line. I guess like I don't know if it was just how phones worked back then, but you would like pick up your phone and like you can hear like snippets of like other people's conversations, like they're also talking on the phone. I gotta look this up. What the hell is a party line?
Interesting. I never heard of this.
Party line.
Oh, I remember hearing about this now in one of the videos I watched prior to coming on here.
Okay, a party line is a multiple line shared service line. It's a local loop telephone circuit that is shared by multiple telephone service subscribers. They were used to provide telephone service starting in the first commercial switchboards in 1878.
God,
apparently
fuck that
they existed
job.
in the 60s. Yeah. But anyway, according to this woman, she called the police to report that she was on one of these party lines and she heard a snippet of someone else's conversation, and it was a man, and he said, she heard him clearly say, "Mother, I just did a terrible thing. I killed 3 persons." It's like that. And this was, I think, like a day after the murders. Yeah. And she knew that he had a strange speech pattern. Now, somehow the technology in the 60s, they were actually able to trace the call that she was on the party line with. How, I don't know. But they actually found out that that call was from Brevard County, but they couldn't actually trace like who it was. So basically it could have been like one of 200 people in that area of Brevard County.
Right.
So that really didn't tell them much. They would literally have to go and interview all 200 people of Brevard County and find out like, were they in Tallahassee at this time, and was it actually linked to this? So I don't think anything actually ever came of it.
Yeah, nothing came of it.
Yeah. So this case was actually reopened in 1980, and one of the suspects that they decided to go talk to was a guy who lived behind the Sims house at the time of the murders. For some reason, in the original investigation, they never interviewed this guy, but they interviewed his girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, Mary and Vernon. I don't know what their last names were. I forgot to write that down. But yeah, Mary and Vernon were the alleged murderers at the time.
Yes. And, they're sus.
Yeah, like they were reported, like even prior to this, like to breaking into funeral homes. They were like well known in the neighborhood for being obsessed with like death and shit like that.
Yeah, and like sleeping in graveyards and all sorts of stuff.
So they were fucking weird, right?
Yeah. Super, super weird. They ended up like actually asking him some questions, and then I know Alan said that he saw that he actually like more recently posted on Reddit
3 years ago.
Yeah, like basically saying that he had nothing to do with the murders, but hold on, I had some notes here.
You're good. And he did this because like prior, like in 1980, like Anna was saying, in 1980, Mary had come forward to the police at that time. Were like, Vernon fucking did it. He did the murders. And,
yeah, she basically tried to like pin it on him.
Yeah, but the police couldn't find enough evidence to make that stick, which again is just like poor policeman work, honestly.
Yeah, apparently in like the 80s, 6-hour interview was filmed with her, and she made statements along the lines of, what would you do what would you do with me if I confessed? And I know in the back of my mind that I was there that night. Did anyone see us go into the house? So she actually went as far as to ask if she could use the reward money for giving Vernon up to put herself in a nice private mental hospital.
Yeah.
And in the original interview with her, she apparently said something along the lines that she like dreamed of being in the house, but they couldn't just like place her in the house. I guess there's like no DNA evidence of her actually ever being in the house. Same and like Vernon. I guess there was no witnesses. But she also said how can he be attracted to that ugly little girl? And my God, that kid with her clothes off lying on the floor, my God. Those are 2 direct quotes from her original interview with the police. And apparently also the boyfriend / I think they got married eventually, so like ex-husband, he was suspected of being like a pervert and also a peeping Tom, and they actually caught him looking at this little girl through her window a week before these murders happened.
I was getting ready to bring that one up. That was a huge one. That's huge. Like so much is pointed in both Mary and Vernon's direction, mostly Vernon because it was a male voice. It was a male voice heard on the line. So it's I'm not saying it is.
So yes, that just seems a little sus. And if you really like kind of put everything together, like him potentially peeping through the windows, and he also, I think they have like a quote of him like saying like the first time he in an interview with him, he said something like, oh, she was so like gorgeous or something like that, and she was only like 14 at the time or 12 at the time.
I think 12.
So, but at the time he first saw her, I think she was in like 3rd grade, and he said, wow, the first time I saw her, I thought, wow, so gorgeous. So if you like think about like all these like creepy things that he's said, and then him and what his girlfriend has also said, it kind of seems pretty weird.
Pretty mad sus there, bro.
Pretty sus.
Right,
but
unfortunately, that's like all the information that is known about this case. The only thing that I wanted to mention aside from that was that the bodies were found at 11:15 p.m. around that time, and one of the neighbors had reported hearing screaming around 10:45. So the murders were pretty recent to the bodies being found.
Yeah,
which is crazy. I mean, it's only, was that a 20-minute difference? A 30-minute difference? You would think like he would see something, or someone would see something within that time frame. A car going by, which is even further pointing at Vernon, actually, thinking about it now, because he could just easily slip into the woods behind their house to get to his house. He mentioned that in a Reddit post, that why would I go through the ravines and the woods to get to their house? Like, no one ever thinks about that. Like, why would you not if you just murder somebody?
Yeah, and like, and they said there was no sign of forced entry, and like, I'm pretty sure they already knew that. Like, I mean, he apparently had some form of relationship with the young daughter. So what if he knocked on the door and then like she let him in? You know, like, this is somebody I know. And or like, I'm not going to think it's weird. It's our neighbor. And also, like, they didn't have any signs of like a robbery. They said that there was like a really expensive coin collection left out, and like money and like actual cash like left around the house, and like no one touched it. So it wasn't a robbery gone wrong.
It was a planned murder.
Wasn't. Yeah, this was definitely seemed like it was planned out and very personal.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of talking about this case, it just seems like a super planned execution, the way they were all bound and gagged and shot in the head.
Yeah, it's really sad. And sadly, it is still not solved to this day in 2021 when we are making this podcast. I really hope that some of this technology that we have now can help, and hopefully there's just some form of DNA that they happen to like put in an evidence bag, and they can actually like find who did this.
So I'll actually post
they deserve the justice.
Absolutely. I was going to say, so I'll definitely put down in the description below this podcast a hotline number to reach out to somebody investigating the case, in case you do have any information regarding anything that we talked about today. So you can feel free to call them if you have any information on the case.
Yes, for sure.
Faux show.
All right. So let's move on to our second case.
God damn.
We might go over an hour today.
I feel like we are. See, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I feel like we can go for an hour and just like one of these stories alone.
Do you have somewhere to be? Are you good with that?
No, I'm definitely not Superman. Clark Kent.
Oh my god. Shut the fuck up.
Sorry, I had to break up the tension after talking about triple homicide.
Yeah. It's terrible. Great. All right, back to the seriousness.
Let me get my other murder paper out. Hold on. Okay, now I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah, I already flipped my page over.
I have my murder notes now. Don't worry.
You freaking took notes today. I'm like so proud of you. Can we just talk about AlanWoke got some notes and also drew a very scary man.
Yeah, I took notes today.
Or woman, I don't know.
In pink.
But yeah, took notes.
Yeah, I never do that.
Came with the big facts. Usually I'm the only loser that like takes a bunch of notes.
And I envy you for that. I'm like, damn it, why did I fucking take notes today on this topic? So yeah, I feel like I had to like bring some serious facts to the table. So I don't want to talk about something as serious as this without having any actual factual information. Just kind of just be me ranting about shit that I don't fucking know about, which is incredibly ignorant. So,
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. Little paper ASMR. Sorry, I'm like trying to find some kind of like comedic relief in the tension that we just went through. Because it's such a fucking horrible thing.
Yes, I agree. And again, like this is kind of just how me and Alan actually just like deal with things in general. Comedy is like a big way to kind of deal with hard topics and like stress. And like I just want to reiterate that like we don't mean any disrespect towards like the families or anyone that's passed away. Yeah, it's just kind of like if we don't laugh about it, we'll be like crying right now. You know, like
it'd just be me pissed and like Anna crying. It's like nobody wants to listen to that.
Yes. So thanks for sticking it out with us, guys.
Thank you, guys. Yes.
Hope we're at least giving you a little bit of a laugh in all of this stuff that we're talking about today. So
let's go to the next one. This is a major fucking case.
And the reason I brought this one up, and you were actually going to bring it up already when I brought it up to you, is this morning my grandma had on like the news station, and then right after the news that she watches like comes on like a thing about unsolved cases, and this was the unsolved case that they talked about today on there, and I was like, no way, I already know so much about this case. And then so I brought it up to you. I'm like, I know Alan knows a lot about this case.
I didn't know as much prior to doing the research, I'll be honest. I thought I knew a lot about it until I did more research, and I watched like the 4-part series on ABC about the case. So let's talk about.
I watched my girl, shout out Stephanie Harlow here on YouTube. Awesome true crime podcast if you guys want to check her out.
I'll link her channel
Shameless
down.
plug.
So let's talk about Jonbenet Ramsey.
Yes. Yeah. Jonbenet Ramsey. This one is, I think, super notorious. If you've never heard of this, you might be living like under a rock or something, to be quite honest with you. It's like one of the biggest cold cases in our country, in my opinion.
Ever.
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that it shouldn't be a cold case. That's what bothers everybody the most, is that we'll get more into it obviously, but like it's just so obvious who the fuck it is, I think. So it just shouldn't be a cold. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You don't think so?
I feel like in my mind there's like one of two things.
Yeah.
Then one I feel like it more strongly goes towards like one than the other, but I still think that like either way was probable.
But I think both ways are
we'll
connected.
Get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah.
All right.
So where are we going to start with the case? Like.
Okay. So I guess like maybe like a little like, all right. So this case happened in 1996.
Yeah.
So Jonbenet Ramsey, she was a pageant queen. She was a gorgeous little girl. She was described as being just like so sweet and kind, like most little girls are. She was working her butt off though. She did like a lot of pageants. I think she won like 5 pageants or something like that in like a short period of time. Her mom was like super involved with her. She basically treated her like a little doll. She dressed her up. She even like bleached her hair, which
her whole mom's side of the family was actually pretty heavily involved in pushing her to doing pageants.
Yeah. Jonbenet like kind of was the favorite in my opinion, because like her name is Jonbenet, which John was her dad's name, and then Bennett was his middle name. So like Jonbenet is like a combination of like their names or something like that. Which is interesting considering like she has an older brother. But I guess that's besides the point. She lived in her house with her mom, her dad, and her older brother. And one day, the police got a horrific call of a frantic mother, basically saying that her daughter had gotten kidnapped.
Yeah, I recommend anybody who's listening to this podcast go listen to the phone call. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, I 100% agree. This phone call was extremely interesting. We can start talking about that if you'd like. But basically, on this 911 call, the mother claims that her daughter has been kidnapped and that the people who did it left this extremely long-winded ransom note.
I want to get into that more than the actual phone call itself, but yeah, continue.
Both are a little interesting, but yeah. So on this call, she basically states that they have this ransom note and that she woke up and she went to go check on her daughter. Her daughter was not in her bed, and no one knows where she is. And they found this note laying out that was a ransom note, and they don't know where their daughter is. They think that this person has abducted her daughter and that they want money. And since that family is very renowned, very rich, well known in their community, they think that these people have taken her and that they are not giving her back without money. I mean, in this note, I also recommend reading the note. It was 3 pages long. It described, don't call the police or else your daughter will die. Don't
talk to anybody.
Your daughter will die. It straight up said, like, don't do this or she will die. And they're like, there's a 99% chance that you will kill your daughter if you tell anybody about this note. Yeah,
and this note's like was like 2 pages long, right? Like it was like
three pages.
Three pages long.
Yes.
So that's pretty fucking interesting, considering every investigating expert will tell you that no ransom note will ever be that long. It'll be, we have your daughter, we want this money at this time and this day, and that's it. So it's very super duper uncommon for ransom notes to be 3 fucking pages and paragraphed at that.
Yes. Yeah, and also what they will also come to discover is that a lot of the lines from this ransom note are actually from movies.
Yes, thank you.
There's several lines in there that are taken from like action flicks, basically.
Ransom movies.
Yeah, and ransom movies.
Like, I can't think of anything right now. There's like a lot of like
the movies
at the time, but even more interesting than that is the number that they use for how much they want for in exchange for the daughter is $118,000, which is a weird fucking number to ask for in general. But we later find out that $118,000 is the exact size of Jonbenet's father's bonus he received the previous year at his company.
Yes, so, and the only people that would know about that is the family.
Not pointing any fingers
yet. The company. Yeah.
Yeah.
So something else that I want to talk about that's interesting about the phone call. I'm not sure if you knew about this. They actually, when they made I don't remember whose documentary it was, but some documentary actually like paid people to analyze this 911 call. This 911 operator, she was very concerned about this 911 call. She thought it was sus as hell. Yeah. She kept Patsy Ramsey, the mother, on the phone for as long as she could because something did not feel right to her. She was following her gut and she was like, I'm going to keep this woman on the phone as long as I can because something is not right here. And she kept her on the phone, and she actually was given like a cease and desist where she wasn't allowed to discuss what she had heard on that phone call for the longest time because they thought they were going to use it in court.
Yeah.
They ended up never using it in court, which you'll find out about later that they do go to court, but like they never use it in court. So she finally was able to talk about it. And so these people that were making a documentary about this case and a couple other people paid to have this phone call analyzed because towards the end of the phone call, she believes that the phone has hung up and she's gotten disconnected from 911, but the phone call was still going. And I highly recommend you listen to these 911 calls because you clear as day hear Patsy say, "We're not speaking to you," to somebody. And then you hear the father say, "What did you do?" And then you hear, "Help me, Jesus," from the mother. And then a child's voice asks, "What did you find?" You hear this clear as day at the end of this phone call. Yes, I heard the phone call earlier. I was shook.
I heard bits and pieces.
I was literally shook.
Docuseries. That's fucking crazy. I mean, fuck.
Yes.
Kind of blows what I was going to say out of the water, honestly. Shit.
The reason that this was a little suspect too is that later on when they were talking to the police, they actually said that their son was still sleeping, and they actually went and woke up their son when the police arrived. So like the police like watched him getting out of bed, but you can clearly hear a child's voice on that phone call say, "What did you find?" like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to know why the dad was yelling, "What did you do? We're not speaking to you." You know, all this seems really crazy.
So, like, aside from like that crazy ass thing, now that you said that, I feel like my thing's kind of stupid. But I'm gonna go ahead and say it anyways, because I already had it loaded. It's like just like her mannerisms on the phone kind of like threw me off a lot. Like specifically when like the operator asking what's going on, like where are you at? You just hear the mom going, "Oh my God, please." She's begging for something without context at all. So like the dispatcher's like talking like, "Oh, where are you at? Where are you located, man? Tell me what's going on." And then you just hear Patsy going, "Oh my God, please." Almost in the exact same tone and like fucking vernacular. It's just weird.
Yeah, plus like when she initially calls, she's like really, really frantic. And then when she realizes that the phone is not disconnected after you hear like those things that they analyzed, she kind of like gets back on the phone like nothing is happening. She's like, "Hello?
Hello? Oh.
Hello?
Oh, hey.
oh yeah, I'm on a 911 call." Yeah.
Help.
That's basically how it goes.
So this is like at 5:30 a.m. This is happening. I just want to put timestamps on things when we're talking about it.
Yes,
because it does play a factor.
Yes. So obviously this 911 dispatcher calls the police, and a police officer is dispatched to their house. The DA's office actually was in contact with the police officers that were sent to their house. Because this family is like so well off and like so known in this community, the DA's office basically told them to like baby them, essentially. They were like, "Don't go in there acting like they're suspects, like don't, like you guys need to respect them, and you guys can't be just like interrogating them and stuff like that."
Yeah.
Like pretty much the police were told to go in there and like not do anything really like to this family.
Exactly what fucking happened, because just like the Sims family, the police came in, didn't set up a crime scene. They let whoever, even family members, walk through this house. You see like family members just fucking like making toast or some shit like that, or cleaning up the kitchen. There's one report of like seeing a family member clean up the kitchen. Like, you're cleaning up a fucking crime scene, and the police are sitting there watching it and letting it happen.
Yes, they also had like friends over as well. Like they called several friends and family members over to the house while all of this was happening. And at this time, they actually sent their son away from the house with a family friend or a family member to go stay with them.
Happen.
Which also, yes, should not have happened, considering like at this point, they think that this girl has been taken and that someone is holding them for ransom. They don't know how they got in the house. You know, I mean, apparently, according to the police reports, multiple windows were wide open. The alarm system was not set, and the doors were like wide open, like not even locked. So I'd like to go back to where we were saying that a lot of these cold cases start with botched police work, for sure.
Even in 1996.
Yes, even then. so frustrating. So
Yeah.
basically, the cops were told to like babysit them essentially, and then one of the police officers that was in direct contact with the DA, basically they were told to like watch the family and like not let them go anywhere. But the dad, John, he ended up disappearing for 50 minutes, where the police had no idea where he was.
Yeah.
So
oh wait,
they lost him.
no, I remember seeing on ABC that the police had told him to start searching the entire house like on his own. Like, if that's the same part that I'm thinking you're talking about. I remember seeing that on the ABC.
No. He like left for 50 minutes, and then like the cop called like the DA and was like, hey, like I don't know where this dude is at, and they're like, we'll find him. And then they found him, and he was like, oh, I was just in my study.
Okay, yeah, different
so
part
then so then that's when we're gonna get to the part I think you were thinking of, is when basically the cop was like, I gotta keep this dude busy, so we're gonna search the house again. So he's like, we're gonna start from the top of the house and go all the way to the bottom of the house. And now the dad was like, no, for some reason.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So he basically grabs his friend, who was for some reason at an active crime scene.
Yep.
Where the police are not really doing anything. And he takes his friend and walks directly to the basement. Now, they didn't check the basement before because the door was like jammed, and when the cops like couldn't get in it, they just kind of were like,
oh, okay.
Okay.
Weird.
And then just like walked away. Yes, like on the initial search of the house, they basically were just like,
well, nothing suspicious here.
Okay. This isn't sus.
Jesus.
So imagine searching like an entire mansion and then just like stopping at the basement because the door like is jammed or something. Like,
imagine being a cop and like bad at your job.
Yeah.
Imagine being bad as a cop.
Together. Yeah. So he takes his friend and they walk to the basement and then down into the wine cellar, which is my least favorite part of this entire story. He opens the door to the cellar and says, there she is, I found her, and then turns the light on. I'm going to repeat what I just said. He walked into the dark cellar that's inside of a basement.
Mm-hmm.
Opens the door, looks in, and then says, there she is, I found her, and then turns the light on. The friend distinctly remembers this happening exactly this way. So how did he see this little girl down in a cellar? Cellars are like pitch black.
Yes.
Like the darkest area in a house is a freaking wine cellar. So you're telling me that this dude that was about to search the entire house with the cops said, no, I'm good, and then just walked directly to the basement, directly to the wine cellar, and then somehow saw her body in the cellar without the light even being on. But he has no idea how she got there, what he'll claim.
And following after that, he then picks up the fucking body and brings it upstairs, tampering with, more evidence, adding his fingerprints onto the crime scene.
Yes. Sadly, she was found down there in the cellar. She had a sheet on top of her, which kind of adds to the susness of the dad seeing her, because you just see a sheet down there and assume that it's a body. Like that's really strange. Yeah. In my opinion. She was covered in a sheet, and she was tied up, and basically there was I forget what this thing is called, but it's like a certain knot tied around her neck, and it has like a piece of wood basically, so you can it's something with a G.
I was gonna talk about that actually. The garrote is what it's called. It's a common mobster tool used to kill people. It's basically like a piece of string attached to two pieces of the wood or whatever, plastic doesn't really matter, that you basically wrap around somebody and pull, and it's going to dig into their neck and cut their neck a little bit, and it's going to strangle them, obviously. So, which is going to lead into one of my theories that we'll talk about at the end of this.
Okay. Yeah, she also had duct tape on her mouth, and she had a pretty severe blow to the head, and also like a big scratch on her face as well.
And the police did not find any duct tape in the cellar, which is extremely surprising. Like you would think they would find like some scraps, maybe a roll, perhaps anything.
Little strings that are always on duct tape that like fall off.
Yeah.
But like Alan said, he then immediately picks up her body and brings her upstairs. Did not call the many cops that are standing in their house to come down. Nothing like that. He immediately picks her up and places her on the floor, which a lot of people think is super weird. I don't really think that it's super weird personally. Like I wouldn't know what I would do in that situation, but like that has to be super traumatic, even if you didn't know that they were there. And I feel like I just don't know what I would do in that situation, so I don't want to like judge.
It just seems super disrespectful. I'll judge. That's fine. I'll be that person. It just seems super disrespectful to put a body, even if you did find the dead body and it is your loved one, you would think like you put a little more effort into placing the body somewhere comfortable. Maybe that's just me. Then I don't fucking know.
Oh no, I can agree with that. I think that I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't just like assume they were like dead. I don't know. Like I wouldn't just like see them and be like, oh, they're definitely dead. Let me just like drag their body up here, like potentially hurting them further, and then like I don't know. But like maybe I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so I don't really know how I would act.
Can't relate.
But anyway, they put her body on the floor. Some people theorize that the reason that he did that was because there was so many people in their house, and he was trying to like get literally all the DNA that he could onto her body.
Mm-hmm. Which is extremely possible.
Yes, extremely possible. So at this point, I've now found her. Nobody's really buying that ransom note. I'd like to also say that many people have, and those people called that like look at handwriting analysis. Mm-hmm. People have analyzed it, and a lot of them have, like, I know one woman actually found like 200 instances that like point to the mom writing this note. There are some people that say that it doesn't match her handwriting too. So
I was saying this before, like I saw that part of the docuseries. I pointed out to Alexis, I was like, that note looks extremely like somebody is trying their hardest to not have any kind of distinct handwriting whatsoever. The squiggly lines, are like the extremely jagged squiggly lines, pinpoints, and just like you're trying way too hard to not have a handwriting signature.
I also thought it was like kind of interesting, like how grammatically correct the letter was as well, considering they were claiming that this note was left by somebody from another country, and I'm assuming that like English probably wasn't like the first language. So like I just thought it was like kind of interesting to like see them not try to like, I don't know. I think if you were like trying to be convincing.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was saying earlier, when we talked about the ransom note earlier, was that it was paragraphed, which is super fucking not common for a ransom note to be paragraphs, or even have a complete paragraph. Like there was periods, like you said, it was grammatically correct, and it was structured like a fucking paper, like for college.
I think they said that if a suspect had broken into their house, kidnapped Jonbenet, they would have had to find the notepad, which they did find the notepad that was used to write this note. They found it in Patsy's like desk drawer. Mm-hmm. And they also found the pen that was used underneath the phone. They would have had to find the notepad, rip the paper out, find the pen, write a 3-page note, like with like
detailed,
pretty decent grammar, detail, paragraphed, like you said, all while not trying to get caught in a house, so it wouldn't, in my opinion, be as neat as it was,
so,
and definitely not as long.
Sounds like somebody was you said the pen was found underneath the phone, so it sounds a lot like the note was being written during a phone call.
Or perhaps sort of around the time of a phone call, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say. Anyways.
Anywho's. Yeah.
I was going to talk more about the crime scene. The actual, like, the cellar itself, because it's an interesting part of the case that no one seems to really consider. And but before that, you said that the body was found in the basement, but there's also a ransom note and she was kidnapped. How the fuck does that not strike anybody as being weird in any kind of way? So you tell me the kidnapper kidnapped the kid in their own house and tied her up in her own house and went upstairs, wrote a fucking letter, and then went back downstairs?
Wrote a book, basically. 3-page letter.
Wrote a book, yeah. All in the span of whatever time that she went to bed to 5:30 a.m. And no one heard a single fucking thing that entire time, but they were up at 5:30 to check on their daughter. Yeah, anyways. That's why I get that off my chest.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Like,
I'm excited to hear more about the crime scene. All I know about the cellar is that there was like a smashed window, but it was smashed like a long time ago. Apparently, according to the dad, that he says that he like locked himself out of the house at some point, and so he broke the window in order to like gain access to the house.
Awfully convenient.
And there was also a suitcase like right under the window.
Yeah, I was gonna get into
didn't
that
really
too.
see. Okay, I'm glad you're gonna get into it because I didn't see anything like about that suitcase. Just like they
Really?
were like, oh yeah, there's a suitcase
Oh my
there, and I was
God,
just like, well, that's weird.
It's gonna fucking disgust you.
Okay.
Oh yeah, trigger warning for this right here. I'm just gonna say that because it is kind of fucking gross and does pinpoint to a little bit of my theories. So the suitcase belonged to they said it belonged to John Andrew Ramsey, but I don't know who the fuck that was. I didn't see I'm assuming they meant Jonbenet Ramsey. I'm assuming. But the items in the suitcase were one blanket covered in cum stains, which were which were tied to the father, and there was also a Dr. Seuss book in there as well, and one other item which was fucking weird. I can't remember what it was. I should have written it down. So I was so thrown off by the fucking cum stained blanket. It's like,
let me look it up.
Yeah, go ahead. But yeah, that suitcase was found directly below the smashed window. And there's more things to the crime scene also, but this is like definitely like the weirdest one. Because why? Why the fuck?
Yeah, see, I'm not even pulling up anything about it when I'm Googling it. I'm like really surprised because what you're saying right now is just heinous, and I'm surprised that it's like not brought up more, considering how horrifying that is.
Yeah. Shit. Fucking. Is it this one? God damn it. Can't fucking find it now. Oh. Shit. Bro. Google, get it together, please. There we go. The suitcase at the crime scene belonged to John Andrew Ramsey. Again, I don't know if they meant Andrew or Bennett, because that doesn't make any sense to me. In the basement where Jonbenet was found, a blue suitcase rested by the wall directly below the broken window where an intruder may have snuck in. Patsy Ramsey insisted that the suitcase did not belong to anybody in the family. Instead, she said that the killer must have brought it to stuff Jonbenet's body inside of. However, the suitcase belonged to John's eldest son, John Andrew, which, again, you know what? That makes sense now. He did have another family prior to Patsy. So John Andrew might have been his firstborn eldest.
Okay.
So that makes sense now. However, the suitcase belonged to John Andrew, and the things inside were incredibly unnerving. Inside were a semen-encrusted blanket and a book by Dr. Seuss. Okay, it was just the two things.
Okay.
At the time, John Andrew was a childless college student, far too old to be reading Dr. Seuss, but the semen on the blanket was proven to be his by a DNA test. But John Andrew was already confirmed to be removed off the list of suspects at the time they realized that it was his cum. So fucking gross.
Yeah. I think that might be a good time to bring up what like the autopsy found. So the autopsy had basically stated that she had passed away from being strangled. That it wasn't like the blow to her head that she had. A lot of people theorize that it actually was the blow to her head that had killed her, but that's not what the autopsy report says. And they also found DNA in her underwear.
Yeah, blood.
Yes, and blood in her underwear. And basically, it seemed to the person who did this exam that she had actually been being sexually assaulted like over a long period of time.
Yeah.
That really pisses me off a lot in this case. I understand that like she passed away, but like they didn't do anything about that.
Yeah.
That just this case like really frustrates me.
This actually was counted 3 years, or not 3 years prior, when she was 3 years old. Was the first sign that she had been possibly raped when she was 3 years old, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor noticed it, but the doctor said, "Oh, well, it's probably just the bubbles from her soap that are irritating her skin." But you fucking just said that there's obvious damage in that area.
Yeah.
So
just the fact that went on for like so long, and then even now, like after death, like she still doesn't have justice for this. It makes me really sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
No one deserves that. So that's basically what the autopsy report found.
Yeah. The blood found in her underwear was not her own, actually. It was identified as a male's blood. They don't know specifically who, obviously, but it was identified as a male's.
Yes, and then I think the other DNA that they found in there was like touch DNA, but sadly, like that couldn't be proven to be like anybody specifically either, because like touch DNA, I guess, is not as like accurate as other DNA, and pretty much like you could be like, oh yeah, that's like from a guy, so like I can say that it was definitely like this person, but you can't. It literally could have been like the person who manufactured that underwear and like the factory, like they could have touched it, and then like their touch DNA could just still happen to be on there, so like it's really unreliable. So it doesn't really help the case very much, sadly.
So another thing that was found was the thing that she was hit with in the head was allegedly a flashlight that they did find in the kitchen, and it did look to have been cleaned when they found it. And it matches up perfectly with their fucking head wound size. I saw the pictures. It was fucking insanely off-putting.
I did not look at the pictures.
ABC was like nuts to butts with it. I mean, I get it. You want people to fucking care. You want people to fucking see what actually happened. You want them to sympathize with the victim, obviously. So I mean, it makes sense to show it, but it is horrifying. It's not for the faint of heart. Yeah,
out of 10. Don't recommend looking that up.
No. But yeah, it definitely coincided with the size of the flashlight they found in the kitchen. That had looked to have been clean.
Yeah, so obviously everyone knew that this was probably not anyone being held for ransom at this point. The police department decided to start their investigation, and the FBI actually like, hey, we can help you guys out. You guys don't really deal with a lot of murders in your town, and you guys are not like super equipped for this. Like, I can send over a bunch of people to help you guys out. And the police department was like, nah, fam, I'm Gucci. Like, no thanks.
We got it.
Yeah,
we
so
good.
For the first 24 hours of this poor girl's murder, this police department, I don't know what the fuck they did, but it wasn't a lot.
They were there?
Yeah, they were there. They basically, eventually, after this 24 hours, realized that them not taking help from the FBI was a huge fucking mistake, and they actually ended up calling them and like getting their help. But the first 24 hours of investigation is like the most crucial time. So they pretty much botched it.
By the time that they did come to their fucking stupid ass senses, it was far too late for the FBI to determine anything. So that was really shitty.
And to me, it's like, they specifically not want like the FBI's help? Is it because like a pride thing, do you think? Or like, was it that because of like how high profile and like rich and well off they were, that the DA already didn't want them to like be pushed too much? It really makes you think.
It could be that, or again, like they're an extremely wealthy family, so there's no telling. It could have been a buy off kind of thing. I mean, obviously I'm stretching here, I'm reaching, obviously. But it's not impossible either, but you could be right about that also. The DA just didn't want this to be in a public spotlight, just out of respect for the family, which is a huge fucking mistake in any investigation. I get it sympathizing with a parent who is losing somebody, who has lost somebody. I get that you don't want the whole world to fucking know about it, but at the same rate, like, it helps to find the person who did it.
Yes. Yeah, and also, like, the majority of like crimes are committed by somebody that you know, and like the family is like automatically the first like suspects. Like, this is the first people we need to look into immediately, because
if you haven't guessed yet, we've been pinpointing towards the family this entire time. It's so much so, in fact, that in 1999 a grand jury did find them guilty, but they couldn't find enough evidence to stick to them at that time point. So but yeah, the grand jury did decide that they did do it.
So basically, they called this grand jury. The grand jury, like you said, they did decide to indict the family on this, not even on murder, but I think on like
child
covering
abuse.
It up, or like knowing, like, I think it was like child endangerment, because I think that what they were trying to get them on is like knowing what happened, but like no one's saying what happened, or like not doing anything about it. But actually what happened is the judge that was overseeing it, he decided that he wasn't going to indict them. So he's allowed to say over the grand jury whether or not he wants to take it, which in my opinion was a little sus too, because like we were just saying, these people were very wealthy, and I've seen this type of stuff time and time again on a lot of cases. Like, look at that freaking Making a Murder. There's like an entire several seasons of that show of
I never watched it.
A lot of you should. There's a lot of suspect things going on there. I
just get so fucking mad watching shit like this. I mean, it's super interesting, and it's nice to get information out there to everybody, but it's so fucking infuriating when you're talking about shit like this, like, especially when it comes to a small child. Like I said earlier, I don't watch a lot of it because of it mostly involves smaller children, and that bothers the shit out of me.
Something else that I thought was like really terrible about this investigation is that like the parents weren't actually questioned for like 5 years.
It was 3 years when the grand jury
3 years
did all that.
So basically, like, they weren't questioned, meaning like they were never a person of interest in this case. And when they finally agreed to being interviewed, they lawyered up immediately, and they said that there was like specific rules for them being questioned.
Yeah.
That they would only agree to like doing it if they had these specific rules, and one of those was that they wanted copies of their original statements that they gave the police before their interview.
So fucking sus.
Yeah, I really don't think that that should be allowed.
Yeah.
Obviously, it makes me think that you guys are trying to get your story straight. You might not remember everything from 3 years ago, so you're trying, you know, real hard not to get that wrong. Seems real interesting to me. So, I don't know, if my child was just brutally murdered, I would 100% want to cooperate with the police and do anything that I can in order to like bring justice
to
them and find out who did this. And the fact that you were not questioned by police for 3 whole years, that's upsetting to me. It's really upsetting. So
let's I know we've been going on for a while on this already. Like,
yes,
we're on 1 hour and 21 minutes right now. So, but it's just so much to talk about with the case. It's like impossible not to like mention who me and Anna think did this, which is pretty fucking obvious. Again, I think again to the court, even it was pretty fucking obvious who did this. So I'll let Alt go first on this.
Oh, you'll let me go with my theory.
I'll go first. Yeah.
Right. Second disclaimer of the podcast. This is 100% our opinions. This is not this part. This is the part that is not facts. This is straight opinions.
Yes.
Come for me. Don't poke me in my eye. Okay.
Don't poke me in my eye. Someone's like walks in.
So my first theory that I've heard that I think could be what had happened was that okay, I want to preface this with I think that what happened was an accident. I just want to put that out there. What, in my opinion, I think what happened was an accident. I think that okay, so apparently at the time, like right before she had passed away, Jonbenet had been having like a lot of issues with like wetting the bed, and she apparently it like pissed her mom off really, really, really bad. And also, I would just like to also add that bedwetting at an older age is a sign of sexual assault. So kids. So I would just like to put that out there. Yes. So she had been wetting the bed a lot, and it apparently like drove her mom crazy to the point that like we actually know this fact because like other people have talked about like how she had like called them like upset about her wetting her bed. And I did forget in the autopsy report they did find like urine in her underwear. So what I'm thinking is like her mom might have went to go check on her in the night, found that she had wet her bed, and just out of anger maybe like pushed her or something, and that's how she sustained the head injury. She passed away from this head injury. This is going off the theory that the autopsy has mixed up with the head injury is actually the cause of death and not the strangulation. Hit her on the head really, really hard. And then she woke up her husband, and he helped her come up with this entire elaborate plan to make it look like she was kidnapped. And then they put her in the basement, and then they did all the duct tape on her mouth and everything like that to make it look like she was kidnapped, basically. My second theory is that another thing on the autopsy is that they found like pineapple in her stomach. And they found pineapple in the kitchen, a bowl of pineapple. The police.
So that's
so
I don't want to cut you off, I'm sorry, but like that's significant because the parents had originally said that her daughter the daughter was like straight into bed. But they said like around the time of her eating the pineapple, it had been much later than that. So that was an interesting part of the case.
Yeah, so the second theory is that she could have been downstairs and her brother could have been eating some pineapple at the counter, and she kind of came over and like stole her brother's pineapple. Obviously sibling rivalry exists. She was like I said, I mentioned earlier how like she's literally named after like her parents, and like she was this pageant queen, and she was like a lot of people, her parents probably paid a lot of attention to her. They invested a lot of money and time into her. I would assume that her brother would have been at least a little bit jealous of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So already being a little bit jealous, I think that maybe he grabbed the flashlight, like you said, that seemed to be the weapon, but they don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And hit her like reactionarily, like, oh no, it's mine, and like, you know, kids play around, sometimes it gets too rough, hit her way too hard, and that happened. And then the same thing, that she basically told his parents, and then they helped cover it up. Now, both those theories, honestly, like after going over all of the stuff that we went over again with you right now,
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't think either of these things.
Really?
Yeah, now that we've like went over everything, I don't know. I think the second one to me is like more likely than the first one. Just that he accidentally like swung at his sister with a flashlight, and then something like she basically got super hurt by this, and then helped cover it up. But now, like knowing about the stuff in the suitcase and stuff, like that kind of changes it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's odd for sure, but I don't know how it plays a part yet.
Case. It's a really, really strange case.
My only problem with the your pineapple theory is the timing of it all. It's just, it doesn't quite make sense. So going back to the phone call, you heard in the background like her parents freaking out at I'm assuming her older brother, and he was like, "What'd you find?" So I'm assuming the parents had just like maybe an hour prior found the body. I'm assuming. Again, this is kind of like my theory as well. So they had just found the body. So the timing doesn't line up with that. Like, why are they eating pineapple like at 3 or 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah. No, that's why I think it like happened like the night before. But if this is what happened, it happened like that night before, and then like they basically took like the whole night to figure out this plan. But like you said, once we start talking about this more, it kind of doesn't really line up, especially with what is heard on that phone call where he says, "Well, what did you find?" To me, that means like he had no idea that they would have found her.
Yeah. So,
but like this kid couldn't have done this by himself, right?
Exactly. That's what I was going into. Because like my theory, again, my fucking opinion, just opinions alone.
Poke him in the eye.
My original theory, like you said too, was like as we talk through this case again, like my theory is also not making sense. I have a whole new theory as we're talking about this. My original one was that the mother did do it completely, and I based that off of the crime scene being too complex for a 9-year-old boy to accomplish. Because I mean the garrote thing, like. So it's like I said before, it's a common mobster weapon, and based off the fucking ransom note, the parents are pretty big movie buffs, so it's not too far-fetched to say that they've seen it before in like mob movies. So I'm thinking that the mother did do it, just because of a recent crime case that we were going to talk about is one where a 14-year-old boy stabbed a younger girl 114 times. So in a lot of like child murder cases, you find that the children are kind of like sporadic. They have no self-control over themselves. Like you said, crime of passion. And so like a 9-year-old boy would have no fucking restraint over what he's doing to his younger sister. So it just seemed like kind of a cleaner murder than a 9-year-old boy can accomplish, even though she was cracked and strangled. But now they're
talking. My question is like, what would be the motive in that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they've invested so much money and like time into this, like into her. You know, like she basically taught her, like she treated her like a doll. You know, like just couldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, but then you brought up the phone call and a lot of the interviews with what's his name, the brother, Bucket, some shit like that. I can't remember.
Hold on, I remember.
Starts with a B.
And we're allowed to laugh at him because he's kind of sus all the way around.
Because he did it.
Offense to him.
Opinionated, of course.
Hold on, I have him here somewhere. Burke.
Yeah, Burke. Fucking suburban white kid name. Yeah, but like hearing Burke in like all of his interviews, he looks like a fucking crazy person. And they even said like when the police did start questioning him eventually, that he was incredibly anxious during the interview. He would smile at some points when talking about what happened. He smiles in a lot of the interviews actually when talking about the murder. But yeah, again, like, so since you brought up the fucking phone call, I didn't hear that part, and tying that in with the interviews, it was for sure him. Allegedly. I think that he was tired of being treated as the second child, second to his sister, that in the middle of the night, it was right before Christmas. That's when I thought that. There's like December 23rd is happening. Yeah, the 23rd.
Yeah, it's right before Christmas.
So he was already getting anxious about all the presents the favorite child was going to get. So he decided to do something about it. He brought her down to the basement, basically fucking tortured her. And then the mom woke up, heard the noise, came down, doesn't want her fucking only surviving child to be put in prison, so she takes matters into her own hand, wakes up the husband. They stage it in a way that looks like a fucking movie killing, like mentioned prior. And yeah, that's where we get to where we're at now. Again, the suitcase is so fucking baffling. It's the biggest questionable piece of any evidence in this entire case.
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
Is definitely the most confusing.
That's what I think happened. They staged it because, you know, it's their only kid, and they don't want to see him go to prison for something he fucked up on. Especially that you mentioned the phone call, because he's like, we're not going to talk to you. Don't talk to us. We don't look at you right now. And he's like, well, what'd you find?
And if we want to take like the suitcase into consideration, like you just said, it is Christmas time. What if like there was family from out of town visiting? And I mean, this could be like super far-fetched, obviously, like there's no evidence pointing towards this, like no one has actually, like I've never heard anyone bring this up. Maybe it's just like way too stupid, I don't know, this is just brainstorming. But like what if, you know, that is his other son? It would make sense for them to be there for Christmas. Could easily, this all could go down, and then they could have found her, and then they knew who did it, and then they made him leave, just pretend he was never there, and then that would explain a little bit more of what did you find.
Could have been both the brothers.
I don't know.
Could have been. I
don't know. It's like a really crazy story. Obviously, we can't figure it out. The cops can't figure it out.
The theories are endless, because now I just put a whole new theory that it could have been both the brothers. Especially considering the fact that she was identifiably being molested at the age of 3. Right. And her younger brother would have been, or her second oldest, her first, Burke was too young at that point to do something like that. So I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. All right, let's get to a positive note. Yeah. That's our thoughts on the case. I'm getting very agitated with myself.
Yes. Okay.
Thinking about the horrible things.
Yeah, like we were saying, this is still sadly a cold case, and a super high profile one with a lot of theories around it and a lot of botched police work.
I just want to say that the Katy Perry theory is fucking stupid. Stop that.
Oh yeah.
Please
stop
that.
I'm not even gonna fucking talk about that.
I was going to bring it to make sure everybody doesn't think it's fucking Katy Perry, because that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard. The timeline alone, her birthday does not add up to 1996. She's like a 32-year-old woman.
Oh, and could I just add that Burke is like super sus when he was on Dr. Phil?
Go look at pictures of him, please. Yeah, go look at that. Go look at that interview. Go look at pictures of him. You see murder
No
in his
offense,
eyes.
bro, but you look kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Phil. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've discussed in length a couple of cold cases that we find extremely interesting, I want to end this podcast on a little bit more of a positive note, and talk about how far technology has come, like we were talking about earlier, and read to you just a quick little thing about a case that was actually a crime that was committed in 1972, and they actually were able to use DNA evidence from the crime scene in 1972 and find out what happened in 2020.
Really?
So, yes, so many years later, I'm not good at the math, so I couldn't tell you. Nearly 50 years, that's what it says in the article. So I'm going to believe them. All right, so this is about a woman who was riding her bicycle on the way to the stable to see her horse when she was viciously attacked, according to the investigators. A couple out target shooting found her partially clothed body in a wooded area off what is now Mill Creek Road, and semen was found near her body on her boot heel. For nearly 50 years, this man with the last name Terrence Miller, 78, he invaded investigators in the alleged killing of Loomis. So for all of this time, no one had any idea it was this guy. And then DNA evidence taken from Walker's body and clothing was preserved for decades and recently submitted for genetic genealogy identification, and the connection was found to an Edmonds family member with 7 siblings, including Miller. And his DNA was collected from a discarded coffee cup from a casino, and it matched the semen collected from Loomis's boot, according to Snohomish County investigators, Captain Rob Palmer.
That's some fucking hell of technology there. Fucking cross-referencing saliva DNA with sperm. That's fucking insane. Semen. Yes. I can never say semen. I don't know why sperm or cum is the first thing I fucking think of when talking about. But my first thought is jizz or fucking cum. I don't know why. Oh God. Semen is a technical term for that. Yes, Alan.
Let's get it together.
Yes.
Also, it was actually found in 2019. I thought this entire article was all 2020. But 2019, pretty close. Yeah, Miller was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty and was released on $1 million bail. Apparently, he did very good for himself. For the years that he was getting away with literally raping and murdering someone. But he had reportedly been accused of sex crimes at least 5 times since the 1960s. Hours before a jury convicted him of murders, he actually ended up killing himself, authorities said.
Fucking pussy.
Not justice, but it is very cool that the police were able to use DNA that they found all the way in the 70s and use it to finally at least attempt to bring her to justice.
It's kind of a happier note, but it's not at the same time. So I'm just so mad that this, like you said way at the beginning of this podcast, these people get to fucking live their lives. But yes, it is also very amazing seeing the progressive state of technology when it comes to these cases. I mean, because not only is it helping find closure for families in 1960 or 1970, it's also helping cases today. Like I said again earlier, keep doing callbacks. Fuck, I lost also train of thought. What was I talking about? I got so caught up in like continuing to call back on things. You know, it doesn't fucking matter, because you know what, dude? Fuck yeah. We're people out there are solving cases with technology, and I'm just trying to be happier now.
I think what you were trying to get at is that the amount of cold cases will be going down.
Yes, thank you.
We are now able to use DNA so sufficiently.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to say too. I totally fucking forgot. Because I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's wrap this bitch up though.
Thank you guys so much for making it all the way to the end of this long ass podcast that we just did.
You're amazing, all of you out there.
Hope that you guys enjoyed it.
You're all wokesters.
I'm sorry that it was definitely a darker topic for our podcast, I'd say, but I think that's really important to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you can't avoid dark topics all the time, and it is something that me and Alt do find very fascinating. I am going to shamelessly plug this real quick. On the upcoming month of AlanWoke channel, I'll be covering more topics like this. I'm doing a lot involving like celebrity true crime and celebrity conspiracy theories, and I'll probably even talk about the Jonbenet Ramsey case. And I hope to have Alt on the channel at some point too to talk about it with me, because I think that me and her do pretty well at this, actually, considering that we're like on the verge of fucking like getting pissed talking about it. I'm like looking at her, get all antsy. I'm like, yeah, me too. Bet. Anyways,
I didn't even realize I was like looking antsy.
Yeah, you were looking down a little bit. It's sad though, but yeah. Again, huge shout out to you guys fucking making it to the end of this podcast. We've been your hosts, AlanWoke and
your girl Altavanged.
And go check out some more content on YouTube. These things I put all around here.
Put them there. I seen them.